Recently, the game asked me to fill in a feedback form, but instead of doing that, I've decided to make a video of changes I would like to see in the game. The first changes I would like to see are to the Sunset Canyon. Firstly, I'd like the revenge button removed because it's open to abuse by players that have multiple farms. And yes, I know nearing the end of the week they can only get maybe 3 stars from each victory they give their main, but if they have a significant number of farms or multi-account set up on their computer, then this really adds up and can imbalance this event and make it unfair. The next change to the Sunset I would like is that instead of every single week being 5v5, that it rotates through different challenges. For example, one week there could be a large barbarian unit in the middle, and we'd all use our peacekeepers to see who get the highest amount of damage in 1 minute, for example. Or another week, you could set a garrison and a rally commander, and you attack their city, they attack your city. Or even you could even test the gatherers. And 1 week it's these, march speed to get to the gathering point, plus how much they can gather in the 1 minute or however long the sunset goes on for. Because at the moment we all have to use the same commanders, where it's a shame that we don't need the garrison commanders, we don't need the leadership commanders for attacking cities, we don't need the peacekeepers really, and we don't need the gatherers. Where if this went on a rotation, I think it could just be more interesting, or just change it up a little bit. So that's my ideas there for Sunset. Next, this is going to be unpopular. I would like that there to be some sort of scout action points. Let's say it starts with a base of 10, and you could then use the search bar 10 times. And then once those 10 are used, it would have to then recover. This, of course, would massively affect barbarian chaining, how strategic reserve works, and change the game. I know for some free-to-play players, but you'd still be able to barbarian change. And as your scout camp went up in level, you would get more searches, and you would still be able to barbarian change, but not to the same extent where you could just barbarian chain for hours. You would have to barbarian chain, wait for your scout camp's action bar to recover. It'd also be worth more for people interested in barb chaining to get a higher level scout camp, and that's how I would prefer that to work. I don't think it would affect those that are using automated farming techniques, but I think that would just bring barbarian chaining under control, especially for events like the Strategic Reserve, which are really massively imbalanced towards the barbarian chaining community. The next change I would like to see would be barbarian camps on the map. So when you press barbarian camps here, what I would like is, instead of just seeing that yellow icon there, I would like it to show the number of hours left on the barbarian. So I would see a little 7 there, and I would see a little 5 there. So instead of me having to zoom in on all of the barbarian camps, I just can see there's like a 5 there, a 7 there, and I know from this screen where the next one's going to be, which I think would be more interesting. I would also like to have a change to the way that barbarian camps work. I think they could just be a lot more excited. That I can see that there is a want to add a raiding element, and this is the current attempt from the game. But I find this firstly a bit easy. I'd like it to be more challenging, and I think what they could do is move this event, but this would be a major coding change, I guess, that if 10 marches from the move into a barbarian camp, the camp then seals in some way. And once those 10 marches are in there, they then have to try and complete it. If they all die, of course, it could reset. And in that way, you could have balance more interesting bosses. At the moment, you couldn't have world bosses because, of course, a large alliance could just pile in 40 players and nuke whatever in there. But if you could somehow set the barbarian camps that only 10 marches can be on the grounds of the barbarian camp at one time, then you could have more interesting bosses within the camp and maybe be like a raiding element. So, you know, in the same way that you could maybe have 3 bosses in here and they reset every couple of days. And I say that could just be more interesting for a raiding or a player versus environment idea for the game. My next problem, or the next thing I'd like to see, is equipment. So equipment, I think, is a massive problem in the game, in that infantry have equipment, support and gatherers have equipment, archers have equipment, but integration and leadership, I don't feel have a proper equipment to set. So we'd obviously have to borrow from what World of Warcraft eventually did, but there would be sets of equipment or equipment items that only a player with leadership could wear. So Ethelfled would be able to wear the leadership equipment, and instead of it saying plus defense to infantry, it would say plus defense to troops and plus defense to troops defense, covering all 3 types of troop. But of course, only the leadership person could wear this this stuff. Also, for the skill-based commanders, where let's say you've got the skill here, you could then get the skill-based equipment. So it would be plus 3 to rage per turn, or increase skill damage by 2%. Just little stuff like that. So you would have different equipment for that would match up for the infantry, skill, garrison, for example. Or garrison could be, you know, a top head bit that then gives plus to garrison defense, and etc. So at the moment, I don't feel equipment works. It's a massive problem in Sunset that you can't really, you're forced into using the infantry, archers and cavalry, where it would be nice that there was a set of equipment for the leadership and for the integration and for the support roles, so that there's there is a type of equipment that can really support every commander. Where at the moment, I don't think that's true within the game, and it makes very hard that, for example, if you use Osman or somebody that forces you, like Ethelfled, to take to use 3 different troop types, that there should be some way that their equipment will match without affecting the infantry, cavalry and archer equipment. The next thing I would like to see is how Alliance coin works. Because at the moment it's massively open to abuse in the early game. So what I would like is that helps work just the same as normal. The maximum daily credit works just the same as normal. But the amount of credit you generated is in relation to your Alliance center. So if I create a new account that has an Alliance center level 4, and I join an alliance to try and dump coin in it to get the center fortress up fast, I will only be generating, say, 10 alliance credits every time I get a help or use a help. And of course, I won't be able to dump coin in the same way as I can at the moment, where if someone's got their alliance center up to level 8, 9 or 10, then they get the full 100. And I think this could just be a method to prevent rushing the central fortress up or imbalancing the very early game by cheating to get your central fortress up. So alliance credits to be related to alliance center. I think it'd also help later in the game that for every help, sometimes you get, at Alliance Center 25, for every help you get 1,000 Alliance coins, and you only need 10 helps to fill up. So if there's no battling going on, it just makes it a lot easier in the later game to fill up the helps. Right, the next thing I would like to see is in Expedition. So I think it's pretty sad that Expedition only plays a role in the game in the early game. I think it should have different phases that open during different KVKs. So Expedition can only be completed up to a certain point. Then when you're in KVK 2, it can be completed up to a different point with different rewards. But you can't continue forward. So the whales can't rush ahead. But I think it could also be redone. That might be a way that we could bring some of the less used legendary commanders in. So if I start an archer account, for example, my expedition, I could select the archer expedition, and then El Cid would be my reward, and the infantry account would then select whoever theirs is. The leadership account would have Caesar, for example, and just an idea that maybe just make this more interesting and more relevant. Because I'm sure there's a lot of players that once they've completed to level 80, then they're finished in the expedition. Where it should be to consider how to make this a more long-term part of the game. Let's now move on. So this is not going to be popular. So I think that as soon as the game opens, it should be possible to take sanctums and pass wands, but there should be no capture rewards. But what the capture reward will give is for the alliance, and we move increasing alliance numbers from flag numbers and alliance tech to sanctums held and holy sites held. So, for example, you start with up to 30 members in your alliance, so only small. Once you've taken 4 sanctums, you can then gain another 5 members per sanctum. That will take you to the 50. You then can take some pass wands, take some altars, and that will get you up to about 80, where then you'll be able to unlock the gold. And as an alliance grows and takes more holy sites, that is how it grows its number of people that can be in the alliance. This would be a significant change to the monument, though, because the rewards for sanctums will move here. So instead of 65 sanctums occupied for the first time, this will read, your alliance holds 4 sanctums, and it will list the different 4 sanctums, and you then get a reward. So all the rewards you would get for taking the 4 sanctums would be here, plus a reward that if your alliance has been strong enough to get and hold 4 sanctums, then you obviously get a much larger reward than the alliances that have only held 1 sanctum, okay, or none. This would stop the imbalance to the game, that there are some methods that the leaderships of large jumps can sometimes get 20 or 25 sanctum rewards, and I don't think this was an intention of the game. I don't think it's also the best experience for small alliances. It also makes the use of moving around to collect rewards. So, I mean, you can take now, under this method, you could take 20 alliances, you could help take 20 sanctums, but you would only get the rewards that if your alliance at the end of the clock held 4 sanctums, you would get the maximum reward. It would be the same for the altar as well. So this would also prevent jumping to double count the altar awards. So I don't know if you follow my videos, it's possible to get where are they? It's possible to get the altar awards twice by simply buying a 600 Alliance coin passport and move in after you've done the altars once, move into another kingdom and doing the altars again. So I know that's not going to be popular, but I think it could make the early game more interesting because the altars would be passed in hands more. It would also be more fair for that small alliance that put their centre fortress up by a sanctum. At least they'd be able to take it and hold it for a while before someone else builds out to it. I think it would just create a bit more fun in the early game. Also stops the abuse where, I say, the rewards can be very healthy for getting 4 sanctums. It also means for the altars that it would be very high level skill to get 6 altars before the clock ran down on that, and it should be a very significant reward. Where at the moment you can, even a strong alliance sometimes only connects 4 or 5 altars, where if you were to connect all 6 it should be a very significant reward, and I think would be interesting part of the game, and just make it a little more interesting and reduce the abuse of moving around for the better alliances or collecting rewards, which I think is not the best nature of the game or the best experience for those playing the game. Now you're not going to like this one either, so I think that in the Lost Kingdom, if you are fighting in Zone 5 and the Zone 5 has the ruins where you can get those extra honor points, I think that if the game can calculate it, if there has been very little fighting between the 2 kingdoms that are disputing the Zone 5, i.e. they have decided to just share the Zone 5 and be on the same team, that the ruins should be able to detect that there has been no fighting in that Zone 5, and when you sit on the ruins, instead of it giving you extra honor, it just damages your troops and in some way punishes you for not fighting for the Zone 5. I think that there shouldn't be benefits for... diplomacy is important, and by all means you'll share whatever the holy sites that are in that sector, but I think the ruins shouldn't give extra honor if you've just decided to share the zone, and if there isn't a certain amount of undisclosed fighting in that zone, that the ruins shouldn't work. So that would be unpopular, but I think that would be a better for the game. You're also not going to like this about the Lost Kingdom. Firstly, the 4 kingdoms that now fight together should all spawn at the same time. I know we're doing 2 at a time, but they need, I think, to be in sync. It's unfair that there are, say, 2 days difference between the kingdoms, that they should all be in sync and should all open up and take their... It shouldn't be possible to get 2 Lost Kingdom rewards, for example, by emigrating after taking one from one kingdom. They should all be in sync, the 4 kingdoms, as they move forward, which is only a small change, and I think we're going to get that anyhow. Also, this is not going to be popular. I have sometimes been in a kingdom that's incredibly toxic, and the only explanation I can come up for why they've decided to be so toxic towards the people in the kingdom is that they plan to farm, or the only interest that the leadership of the kingdom have is in the mightiest governor event. So I think that if you go into the Lost Kingdom and you lose your Crusader fortress because you're not working together, your kingdom is a mess, you've been toxic and civil war has broken out, that I think after the KVK one has finished, that the mightiest governor event should then reset back to Caesar, then go to Martel, then go to El Cid again. And I think this should be a punishment in place, because at the moment what happens if you have a fantastically toxic kingdom, they lose their Crusader fortress, it's a complete nightmare. Lots of people have put money in and emigrated away, and the leadership that is there sometimes only has a few whales that can enforce rules for Mightiest Governor event, and then can farm 180 legendary heads of very good commanders, which I don't think's right. That if your kingdom has completely collapsed and is in civil war, or you have been completely toxic and you've lost your Crusader fortress through poor play, then I think you should reset your Mightiest Governor event and have to redo Caesar, Martel and El Cid before you move on. I know this would be pretty catastrophic, but and if you kept losing your Crusader fortress, it would mean that you would never properly progress, but then the kingdom would die. But instead of the dead kingdom being valuable to some people looking for gold heads, it would just be a dead kingdom. Right, I think that's all my ideas for the moment. I know lots of these won't be popular, but that's what I think would be more fun, certainly at the start of the game, and perhaps bring a bit of balance into the game in some areas and stop some toxic behaviour, and also give the small alliances, at least they get to hold a sanctum or an altar for a little while, and might be a bit more fun. Thanks for watching.